The large meeting room fell silent as Ambassador John Winters walked to the center of the chamber. Around him sat representatives from 17 different alien species, their eyes, some multifaceted, some glowing, some barely visible, all fixed on the lone human. The room itself was a marvel of alien architecture, with living walls that pulsed with soft bioluminescence, and a transparent ceiling that revealed the 3 moons of Nexus, the neutral planet that housed the headquarters of the Galactic Concord. John took a deep breath. After 10 years of service as Earth's primary representative to the Concord, he never imagined his most important speech would be his last. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Concord," he began, his voice firm despite his racing heart. "I come before you today with a message from Earth's United Nations Security Council." The Concord members shifted in their seats. Many had expected another human plea for technological access or reduced resource quotas. What they didn't know was that the message John carried would change the course of galactic politics forever. As of today, Earth and all human colonies are withdrawing from the Galactic Concord. We are severing all diplomatic ties, effective, immediately. The chamber erupted. The insect-like Vex representatives clicked their mandibles furiously. The normally stoic Duranian delegate rose to his full 12-foot height, his skin flashing with patterns of outrage. Even the ancient Zoltar, who rarely spoke during meetings, began to glow intensely with agitation. High Chancellor Valerian raised his 4 arms, calling for order. The slim, blue-skinned alien had always treated John with a mixture of condescension and amusement, as if humans were clever pets who occasionally surprised their masters. "Ambassador Winters," Valerian said once the noise subsided, "surely this is a negotiating tactic. Your species cannot possibly survive alone in this galaxy. There are threats beyond your understanding, predators in the void that would consume your worlds without our protection." John maintained his composure. "The decision is final. For 10 years we have tried to be good partners. For 10 years, we've watched the Conquered take Earth's resources while giving minimal technology in return. We've seen our colonies restricted while other species expand freely. And now, without permission, your forces have established a military presence on Mars." "A peacekeeping mission," interrupted Ambassador Krex of the Vex Hive. "For your own protection." "A violation of our sovereignty," John countered. "Earth did not request or authorize armed forces on Mars or anywhere else in our system." Olivia Clark, John's assistant and the youngest human diplomat in the Concord, stepped forward with a data crystal. Her normally friendly face was serious as she inserted it into the chamber's central projector. "These are recordings from the Mars facility," she explained as images appeared above them. "Conquered ships landing heavy mining equipment, restricted areas where humans are denied access, research facilities studying Earth's military capabilities and defenses." The evidence was damning. Several of the smaller Conquered species looked uncomfortable. The Ardelians, who had always been more sympathetic to humans, whispered among themselves. "You've never seen us as equals," John continued. "From our first contact, we've been treated as primitives who should be grateful for whatever scraps of knowledge you choose to share. You put limits on our development while harvesting our world's resources and creative arts. That ends today." Valerian's blue skin darkened with emotion. "This is foolishness, Ambassador. Without the Concord's protection, without access to our trade networks and technology exchange programs, your civilization will stagnate. You will become vulnerable." John allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps, or perhaps not. Back on Earth, the withdrawal had been months in planning. In a secured room deep beneath New York City, President Frank Miller addressed his crisis team. "Is everything ready?" he asked, looking at the wall of screens showing preparations around the globe and across Earth's colonies. Director of Defense Alan Powell nodded. His weathered face showed the strain of recent weeks, but his eyes remained sharp. "Protocol Hermit is ready to activate, Mr. President. All colonies are prepared for communications blackout." "And our defensive measures?" the President asked. Chief Scientist Samantha Grayson stepped forward. Unlike most in the room, she seemed energized by the challenge ahead. The shield network can be activated within hours of Ambassador Winter's return. It won't be perfect, but it will make any aggressive action against Earth costly. The president turned to the final screen, where the head of Earth intelligence waited. And our listening posts? Will remain active but untraceable, came the reply. We'll see them, but they won't see us. President Miller nodded gravely. Then we proceed. May God help us all. On Nexus, the debate had turned heated. You cannot simply leave, shouted one representative. No species has ever withdrawn from the Conquered in its 8,000-year history. Then we will be the first, John replied calmly. Unless the Conquered immediately removes all forces from Mars, recognizes full human sovereignty over our colonies, and agrees to fair trade terms without technology restrictions. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew those terms would never be accepted. Valerian spoke quietly now. I have always respected humans for their adaptability, Ambassador Winters. But this is beyond adaptation. This is suicide. Your concern is noted, John replied, but our decision stands. Throughout the next week, human representatives across the galaxy packed up their embassies. Research teams returned home from collaborative projects. Trade relationships were systematically dissolved. The galaxy watched in disbelief as humanity, piece by piece, disconnected itself from the interstellar community. On the final day, John and Olivia stood in the Hall of Members, where each species' emblem adorned the wall. With careful hands, John removed Earth's symbol, a blue sphere wrapped in olive branches. You realize what you're doing? Asked Valerian, who had come to witness this final act. Your species will stand alone against threats you cannot imagine. We've stood alone before, John replied, tucking Earth's emblem into his pocket. As they walked to the last human ship leaving Nexus, Olivia glanced back at the assembled aliens watching their departure. They look worried, she observed. John nodded. They should be. They've only seen what we can do with limited resources and restricted technology. Now they'll see what humans can accomplish when left to our own devices. The ship's ramp closed, behind them with a final, decisive thud. Across human space, colonies activated their shields and communication systems went dark. Earth had made its choice, humanity had walked away, and the galaxy held its breath. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Concord, the alien civilizations were still struggling to adapt. Trade routes had been disrupted, scientific collaborations had ended abruptly, and 17 different species found themselves debating what humans might be doing behind their new wall of silence. On the Concord's central diplomatic planet Nexus, High Chancellor Valerian paced the length of his office. The tall, blue-skinned alien stopped occasionally to stare at the empty space on the chamber wall where Earth's emblem once hung. Any response to our latest message? He asked his aide, a young Ardelian named Tezix. No, High Chancellor. Tezix replied, his feathered crest drooping slightly. Like all the others, it was received but not answered. Valerian made a sound that, in his species, indicated deep frustration. It makes no sense. They're not fleeing or preparing for war. They're just silent. Perhaps that is their strategy, Tezix suggested. My analysis indicates their withdrawal was too organized to be impulsive. They're not retreating in fear. They're creating distance. Valerian considered this. In 8,000 years of the Concord's existence, no species had ever simply walked away. It was unnerving in ways the High Chancellor couldn't fully explain. Meanwhile, aboard the transport ship Heritage, John Winters and Olivia Clark watched from the observation deck as their vessel approached Earth. The blue-green planet grew larger in the viewscreen, its beauty still striking even after their years of diplomatic service among the stars. Home at last, Olivia said softly. I never thought I'd miss it this much. John nodded. The past 6 months had been exhausting, overseeing the systematic withdrawal of human presence from conquered space. They were the last representatives to return. Has Protocol Hermit been fully implemented? He asked. Yes, Olivia replied, checking her datapad. All 12 colony systems are shielded and running on independent networks. Communications blackout is complete except for our secure channels. Director Powell reports that the Mars situation has been resolved. John raised an eyebrow. Resolved? Olivia allowed herself a small smile. The conquered forces found themselves surrounded by 3 times their number of Earth ships. They left without incident. The Heritage docked at the orbital station above Earth. President Miller was waiting when they disembarked, his face solemn but determined. Ambassador Winters, Ms. Clark. He greeted them with firm handshakes. Welcome home. Your service has been exceptional. Thank you, Mr. President, John replied. But I suspect our work is just beginning. Indeed, President Miller gestured toward the waiting transport. The Security Council is assembled. The real test starts now. The meeting took place in a reinforced bunker beneath the rebuilt United Nations headquarters. Around the table sat the leaders who would guide humanity through its self-imposed isolation. The mood was tense, but focused. Our intelligence suggests the Concorde is still in shock, reported the head of Earth Intelligence, a stern woman named Ellen Davis. They've sent 17 different diplomatic messages asking us to reconsider. And the military response? Asked Alan Powell, leaning forward. Exactly, as we predicted, Ellen replied. They've established observation posts at the edge of our space, but they're not willing to risk direct confrontation. Not yet, anyway. President Miller turned to Chief Scientist Samantha Grayson. And our technological development? Samantha's eyes lit up with excitement. Without conquered restrictions, we're making advances that would have taken decades under their supervision. The research teams on Europa have already improved our energy generation efficiency by 300%. The shipyards at Alpha Centauri report the first truly human-designed faster-than-light engines will be ready for testing within months rather than years. What about defense? Olivia asked, still thinking like a diplomat. Alan Powell activated a holographic display showing Earth and its colonies. Every human settlement now sits behind shield technology that the Conquered never showed us, but that we developed ourselves by studying the scraps they let us see. We've also deployed automated defense platforms at key positions. They're not aggressive, but they're watching. John studied the display carefully. And the Hermit Network? Operational, Samantha answered. We can communicate among ourselves without the Conquered detecting our signals. They think we're in a complete blackout, but we're actually more connected than ever. President Miller nodded with satisfaction. Good. Now we proceed to Phase 2. In the months that followed, human colonies transformed. Without conquered restrictions on development and expansion, new cities sprouted across Mars. Mining operations in the asteroid belt doubled their production. The scientific outpost on Europa became a thriving research center. Most importantly, humans began to change how they saw themselves. No longer the newest and weakest members of a galactic community, they rediscovered their self-reliance and ingenuity. On the colony world New Washington, Governor Steve Rogers watched construction, crews building new housing units for the growing population. Beside him stood his chief engineer, Linda Patel. Another 1,000 families arriving next month, Linda reported. People are eager to leave Earth's crowded cities now that we're expanding freely. And the new defense grid? The governor asked. Operational. Same as all the colonies now. We can see them, but they can't see us. The governor nodded with satisfaction. To think the Concorde tried to convince us this planet couldn't support large settlements. Far from Earth, at the edge of human space, a small Concorde scouting vessel approached cautiously. Its captain, a veteran Duranian named Vral, studied the sensor readings with concern. Another automated defense platform, he noted. That makes 17 we've counted. His second-in-command hovered nearby. The humans seemed to favor that number, one platform for each Concorde species, perhaps. A message, Vral agreed. Note how it's tracking us but taking no hostile action. They're saying, we see you, but we have nothing to say. The scouting vessel changed course, continuing its patrol of the invisible boundary that now separated humanity from the rest of galactic civilization. Back on Nexus, the Concorde Council was in session, debating the human situation for the 100th time. They cannot sustain this isolation, insisted Ambassador Krex of the Vex Hive. Eventually they will come crawling back, begging to rejoin. I am not so certain, said the Ardelian representative, whose species had always maintained better relations with humans. We may have underestimated them. High Chancellor Valerian listened to the arguments with growing unease. Something about humanity's silent retreat disturbed him deeply. It wasn't fear or anger that drove their actions. It was something else, something deliberate and patient. Perhaps, he said, finally interrupting the debate, we should consider the possibility that they never needed us as much as we assumed they did. The council chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Around the galaxy, the various species of the Concord continued their daily lives, but with a new, uncomfortable awareness of the human-shaped void in their midst. Humanity had walked away, and the galaxy continued to hold its breath. 5 years passed without a single word exchanged between humanity and the galactic Concord. 5 years of silence that created ripples across thousands of worlds. 5 years that changed everything. On Earth, the once crowded cities had thinned, as people spread across the solar system and beyond. The old United Nations building in New York now housed the expanded Earth Defense Council, where the leaders of humanity gathered to discuss their progress. President Kimberly Scott stood at the head of the table, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun. At 58, she had won her position based on her unwavering commitment to the hermit strategy, as Earth's isolation had come to be known. Reports from all colonies, she announced, activating the holographic display. 12, human settlement. Systems appeared, each surrounded by a green glow indicating their protected status. Minister Clark, your assessment? Olivia Clark, now Earth's Minister of Defense, rose from her seat. The former diplomatic assistant had proven herself an exceptional strategist during the withdrawal and had risen quickly through the ranks. All defense networks are functioning at optimal levels, she reported. The Concord continues to probe our boundaries, but their attempts have become less frequent. They're beginning to accept our new status quo. And our technological progress? The president asked. Chief Scientist Samantha Grayson touched her tablet, and the display changed to show various research projects. Her once brown hair had more gray now, but her eyes still shone with the same enthusiasm. Beyond our most optimistic projections, she replied. Without Concord restrictions, we've made advances that would have taken centuries under their supervision. Energy weapons, shield technology, propulsion systems, all leaped forward by decades. Show them the Artemis project, Olivia suggested. Samantha nodded and adjusted the display. A sleek spacecraft appeared, unlike any design humans had produced before. Our first true deep space exploration vessel, twice as fast as anything the Concord ever showed us, with defensive capabilities that match their mid-tier warships. John Winters, now serving as special advisor to the president, studied the ship with approving eyes. And they have no idea. We've built this? None, confirmed Ben Martinez, the commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces. Our production facilities on Titan remain undetected. The Hermit Network keeps all communications secure. President Scott nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. Now what news from our listening posts? Ellen Davis, the intelligence chief, stepped forward. Despite her advancing years, she remained sharp and focused. Interesting developments within the Concord itself. Our hidden observers report growing divisions among the member species. She activated a recording of a Concord Council meeting, secretly obtained by human intelligence. On the screen, representatives argued loudly. Cannot continue to enforce these outdated policies, shouted the Ardelian delegate. Look what happened with humanity. If we had treated them as true equals. The humans were primitives who needed guidance, interrupted the Vex representative. Their departure proves their immaturity. Their departure proves our failure, countered another voice, and now other species begin to question our methods. The recording ended, and Ellen looked around the table. A political faction called the Reformists has gained influence. They argue that our treatment was a diplomatic disaster that should not be repeated with other emerging species. President Scott considered this information. So our silence speaks volumes. More than any words could, John agreed. By walking away, we forced them to confront their own failings. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on planet Nexus, High Chancellor Valerian sat alone in his private chamber. Age had dulled the vibrant blue of his skin, but his mind remained sharp as he reviewed reports from across conquered space. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Enter," he called. Tezix, now his senior advisor, stepped into the room. The young Ardelian's feathered crest had grown fuller with maturity. "The council session has ended, High Chancellor. The vote on the reform measures has been postponed again." Valerian made a gesture of acknowledgement. "And the human situation?" "Unchanged," Tezix replied. "Our observation posts report normal activity at their borders. Their automated defense. Platforms track our ships but take no action." The silence continues. The High Chancellor moved to the window, looking out at the 3 moons of Nexus. 5 years, he said softly. 5 years of silence, yet they dominate our discussions more than when they were here. "Some believe they are building weapons, preparing for war," Tezix noted. "Perhaps," Valerian replied. "But I have studied human history. They are not a patient species by nature. If conquest was their goal, they would have acted by now." "Then what are they doing?" Tezix asked. The High Chancellor turned from the window, his 4 arms clasped in contemplation. "Growing. Learning. Becoming something we never allowed them to be." Back on Mars, the transformed landscape showed humanity's expansion. Where once a few controlled settlements existed under conquered regulations, now vast domed cities sprawled across the red planet. Inside one of these domes, a university classroom hummed with activity. Professor Kate Ryan pointed to a holographic display showing the known galaxy. "Before our withdrawal, humans were permitted to settle these 3-star systems only," she explained to her students. "Now we have established colonies in 12 systems, with exploration teams preparing 3 more for habitation." A student raised her hand. "Professor, why did the Concord limit our expansion?" "Officially? For our protection and to maintain galactic stability," Kate replied. "In reality, they feared our rapid adaptability. In just a few generations on Earth, humans advanced from primitive flight to space travel. Most conquered species took thousands of years to achieve the same." "Do you think we'll ever rejoin the galactic community?" asked another student. Kate considered the question carefully. "Perhaps, but not as the junior partners they wanted us to be. When humanity returns to the galactic stage, it will be on our terms." On the edge of human space, a Concord scout ship detected unusual energy readings. Captain Vral, now a veteran of the Human Border Patrol, studied the sensor data with interest. "Another test of their defense system?" asked his second-in-command. "No," Vral replied, his experience telling him something different. "This is new, some kind of long-range sensor sweep." He adjusted their ship's position slightly. "They're looking outward, not at us." "Outward? At what?" Vral turned his gaze toward the vast darkness beyond the edge of charted space. "That is the question, isn't it? What do they see that we don't?" As the human silence stretched into its 5th year, both humanity and the conquered had changed. Earth and its colonies had grown stronger, more united, more advanced. The conquered had become introspective, questioning traditions and methods that had gone unchallenged for millennia. Neither realized that an unseen clock was ticking and that events were in motion that would soon force an end to the silence. Humanity had walked away, but their return to the galactic stage was approaching faster than anyone could imagine. The alarm sounded throughout the Nexus monitoring station, its urgent tone bringing the night shift to full alert. Senior Observer Tezix rushed to the main control room, his feathered crest raised in alarm. "Report," he ordered, taking his position at the command console. "Unknown vessels approaching from beyond the galactic rim," responded the sensor operator, a young Duranian whose scales had paled with stress. Configuration matches nothing in our database. Tezix studied the holographic display with growing concern. The approaching fleet moved in perfect formation, over 30 ships of various sizes, all with sharp, angular designs that contrasted with the smooth curves favored by conquered engineers. Have they responded to communications? No, Senior Observer. We've broadcast on all standard frequencies. Tezix made a quick decision. Alert High Chancellor Valerian and deploy our border patrol ships to establish a buffer zone. 3 days later, an emergency session of the Concord Council convened on Nexus. The chamber, normally orderly, buzzed with anxious conversations as representatives from all 17 species waited for the High Chancellor to arrive. When Valerian entered, the room fell silent. The aged alien moved slowly now, but his voice remained strong. Esteemed representatives of the Concord, he began, I bring grave news. 3 of our outposts in the Ferox sector have gone silent. All communication ceased approximately 26 hours ago. Holographic images appeared above the council table, showing the last transmissions from the outposts. The final frames captured glimpses of the angular ships before the feeds cut to static. The newcomers, identified by our analysts as the Void Collective, employ technology beyond our current capabilities. Valerian continued. Their weapons overwhelmed our defenses before countermeasures could be deployed. What do they want? Asked the Zoltar representative, his ancient face glowing dimly with concern. We don't know, Valerian admitted. They've ignored all attempts at communication, but their actions suggest conquest rather than exploration. Within weeks, reports of attacked outposts multiplied. 5 more Concord facilities went dark. Then a small colony world. Refugees began flooding toward the core systems, bringing tales of devastating weapons and merciless efficiency. For the first time in thousands of years, the mighty Galactic Concord faced an enemy it could not easily defeat. In a private chamber, after the 4th Emergency Council meeting, Valerian met with his closest advisors. The mood was somber. Our conventional forces are insufficient, reported the Concord's military commander. We need time to adapt our defenses to counter their technology. Time we don't have, added another advisor. At their current rate of advance, they'll reach major population centers within months. Valerian stared at the star map showing the Void Collective's progress. Their path of destruction curved around one section of space, the area now occupied by human colonies. The High Chancellor made a decision that would have been unthinkable just weeks earlier. Prepare a diplomatic shuttle, he ordered, and contact Dr. Lisa Edwards. Dr. Edwards, a human xenobiologist who had worked closely with many conquered species before the withdrawal, was surprised to receive the encrypted message at her research facility on Mars. Even more surprising was the request it contained. After consulting with Earth's leadership, she agreed to join the delegation that would attempt to make contact with humanity after 5 years of silence. The diplomatic shuttle approached the edge of human space cautiously. Aboard, Dr. Edwards felt strangely nervous about contacting her own species as a representative of the conquered. We're being scanned, announced the shuttle's pilot as they reached the invisible boundary that separated human territory from the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Edwards moved to the communications station. This is Dr. Lisa Edwards aboard the Concorde. Vessel Peaceful Overture. The galaxy needs you. For 3 tense days there was no response. The shuttle maintained position at the border, waiting. The Conquered representatives grew increasingly anxious, but Dr. Edwards counseled patience. They're listening, she assured them, and they're deciding. On the 4th day, sensors detected an approaching vessel, sleek and elegant, clearly advanced beyond anything the Concorde had seen from humans before. The ship moved with remarkable speed and precision. Human design, but incorporating technologies we've never shared with them, whispered one of the Conquered scientists in awe. The vessel positioned itself near the shuttle, and a communication channel opened. On the view screen appeared a face Dr. Edwards recognized immediately. John, she said warmly. John Winters, now older and bearing the insignia of Earth's Special Envoy, nodded in greeting. Lisa, it's been a while. 5 years, she replied. And now we come seeking help. John's expression remained neutral. We've been watching. Let's talk. The meeting took place aboard the human vessel named Vigilance. Its interior reflected humanity's technological leap, clean, advanced, and distinctly different from conquered design philosophies. The human delegation, led by John Winters, listened as the conquered representatives explained the threat posed by the Void Collective. You abandoned the galaxy when it needed unity most, accused one Concord minister when they finished their briefing. No, replied John calmly. We stepped back to see who among you would recognize their mistakes, and to prepare for what we knew was coming. The statement stunned the Concord delegation. You knew? Asked Valerian's representative. Not specifically. About the Void Collective, John clarified. But our historians and sociologists predicted that a galactic society as static as the Concord would eventually face an outside context problem, a threat it couldn't handle using established methods. He activated a display showing the movements of the Void Collective. Our long-range sensors detected their approach 2 years ago. We've been monitoring their advance and preparing accordingly. Why didn't you warn us? Dr. Edwards asked, troubled. By this revelation, John looked at her directly. Would you have believed us? Or would you have assumed it was a human trick to regain access to conquered technology? The uncomfortable silence that followed answered his question. Our intelligence networks never truly withdrew from galactic affairs, John continued. We kept watching, analyzing, preparing. We know more about the Void Collective than you might think. He shared human findings. The Void Collective appeared to be a fusion of organic and mechanical life, expanding through the galaxy, consuming resources and technology. They communicated through quantum-entangled systems immune to conventional interception. Most importantly, they operated as a unified neural network rather than as individual ships. That's their strength and their weakness, John explained. Disrupt the network, and their coordination fails. Can you help us? Valerian's representative asked directly. John exchanged glances with his human colleagues before answering. Yes, but not as subordinates, not as junior partners. If humanity returns to the galactic stage, it will be as equals. He presented a data crystal containing the terms of a new treaty, what would later be called the Nexus Accord. It recognized humanity's full sovereignty, established Earth as an equal partner rather than a subordinate, and created a joint defense initiative against the Void Collective. Take this to High Chancellor Valerian, John said. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, we will pursue our own strategies for dealing with the Void Collective. As the Concord delegation prepared to depart, Dr. Edwards lingered, behind for a private word with her old colleague. John, be honest with me. Did humanity really walk away just to prove a point? John's expression softened slightly. No, Lisa. We walked away because we needed to find our own path, to discover what humans could accomplish without constraints, but now, he looked out a viewport at the stars. Now it's time to return and show the galaxy what we've become. As the diplomatic shuttle departed, humanity prepared for war. Not as the primitive species the Concord had once dismissed, but as something new and formidable. The galaxy had held its breath, and now it would witness humanity's return. The Nexus Chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 17 Concord species gathered to witness the historic moment. After 5 years of silence, humanity was officially returning to the galactic community. High Chancellor Valerian stood at the center of the chamber, his blue skin showing the signs of age and stress. Beside him stood John Winters, representing Earth and its colonies. The two leaders faced each other as equals for the first time. Today marks a new chapter in our shared history, Valerian announced, his voice carrying throughout the room. The Nexus Accord recognizes humanity as a full and sovereign partner in the galactic community. John stepped forward and placed Earth's emblem back on the wall where it had been removed 5 years earlier. The simple gesture carried enormous significance. Humanity had not returned as a defeated people, but as a powerful ally by choice. Together, John said, we face an enemy that threatens all life in this galaxy, The Void Collective does not seek conquest. They seek consumption. Today, humanity rejoins the fight not as junior partners but as equals, bringing our own strengths to the battle. Beyond the ceremony, action was already underway. Earth Defense Minister Olivia Clark coordinated with Concord military leaders, teaching them to use their existing technology in ways they had never considered. Your ships have the power, she explained to a group of Concord commanders. You just never applied it effectively. Separate these energy pathways, reconfigure these shield harmonics, and you'll see immediate improvements. The Concord officers were astonished at how quickly humans had mastered and improved upon technologies that had taken their species centuries to develop. On the front lines, the human flagship Defiance moved into position. Sleek and powerful, it represented the pinnacle of humanity's 5 years of unfettered development. Admiral Peter Wilson studied the tactical display showing the Void Collective's advancing forces. Their ships move as one, he observed to his bridge crew. A neural network connecting them all. That's their strength and their weakness. The battle plan was daring. While Concord forces engaged the Collective's main fleet, the Defiance would lead a small strike team directly against their command structure. It was the kind of high-risk, high-reward strategy that reflected human thinking. Begin the approach, Admiral Wilson ordered. Activate the stealth systems. The human ships vanished from conventional sensors, using technology developed during the silent years. They slipped through the Collective's defensive screen as the main battle raged elsewhere. At the critical moment, the Defiance revealed itself, launching a precise strike not at the Collective's largest vessels, but at a small, heavily protected ship at the center of their formation. Now, ordered Wilson. The human vessels fired specialized disruptor beams, targeting not the ship itself, but the quantum communications array that linked the Collective's neural network. The effect was immediate and devastating. Cut off from their central coordination, the Void Collective's ships began moving erratically. Some froze in space, others fired weapons in random directions. The unified threat had become a scattered collection of confused vessels. The Concord fleet, guided by Olivia Clark's tactical upgrades, pressed the advantage. Within hours, the battle had turned. In the aftermath of victory, a transformed Galactic Concord emerged. Human representatives took prominent roles in rebuilding efforts. Science liaison Daniel Morgan worked with Concord researchers to share human innovations. Cultural attaché Rebecca Howard helped bridge the understanding between species. 1 year later, John Winters addressed the new Galactic Assembly, which had replaced the old Concord Council. Representatives from all species, including humanity, now sat as equals. 6 years ago, humanity walked away, he began. We did so not to abandon the galaxy, but to find our own strength. Sometimes a step back is necessary before a greater leap forward. He gestured to the chamber around him, where former adversaries now worked together as partners. The galaxy held its breath during our absence, John continued, and in that pause we all found a better way to breathe together. Around countless worlds, humans worked alongside former adversaries. The brief human absence had changed the course of galactic history more profoundly than centuries of presence ever could. And on Earth, in the rebuilt United Nations Plaza, a new monument stood, a simple plaque bearing the words that had guided humanity through its greatest challenge. Sometimes, you must walk away to be truly seen. Human and alien visitors alike paused to read these words, understanding that in the vastness of the galaxy, true strength came not from dominance, but from the courage to stand alone, and the wisdom to return when the time was right.